the world through philosophical discussion. So, yeah, I'm actually back again from the last stream after my electricity went out. And so, yeah, I'm not going to continue with reviewing that video because I'm, to be entirely honest with you, I'm incredibly bored of it anyway. And I may reach out to the author. So at least in this way, like we get maybe a nice little Q&A for 20 to 30 minutes, and then I'll probably just call it quits and stuff. But you know, it was an interesting video to say the least, and hopefully, obviously, people will turn up after obviously that's essentially fell through with the electric. Nice little Q&A for 20 to 30 minutes. Me. And I'll probably just gonna share that. Any news on the course I'm producing? Yeah, it's actually been delayed. I'm having to delay the course for about a month or two with everything that's going on in terms of my responsibilities. So, yeah. If anyone has any questions, just drop them into chat and I will answer them. And obviously, if you want to support the channel and get your question answered sooner, then you can do so via the Streamlabs donation link in the description. It should be in the description. Is it in the description? Holy hell, it actually is in the description. I'm actually really surprised at that. I'll just put that there as well. Yeah, we're good. Tomorrow I'm back. It's just me whole electricity just cut out, like all of it, like everything went off, the lights, everything. Yeah, it shouldn't be too long for the delay on the course, but it's obviously I just want to make sure that it's as high quality as possible. I'm getting a new camera because this camera is pretty much broken. It flickers and stuff, and it's not really capable of filming a high quality course on. So I'm gonna have to get a new camera anyway. Do you think ANCAPs can overcome the problem it currently has? I don't. I think the problem is the capitalism. It could if it went socialism and anarcho-socialism or something like that. But no matter what, I think you're going to end up having to need some level of state apparatus for a society to function properly. I would say so. That's why I would describe myself more as a libertarian socialist than than an anarchist these days. Thoughts on the philosophy of Rage Against the Machine? I don't think that philosophy is that good. If I'm honest, it's fun. Like I like the whole like. I like the passion. I am a moral realist. I have an ethics. I have a video on me meta ethics called um, ethical objectivism is ethics are objective even if oh no, is it morality is objective even if there is no God. So yeah, check that out. So I'm an ethical objectivist. I take a Hegelian approach, Ben Ross. I get this question a lot. What are my top 3 philosophy book recommendations for a beginner? It depends on what you are wanting to start off with, but I have links in the description in relation to that from the Amazon bookstore. I would say that I would recommend Philosophy, the classic readings, because it's just a brilliant book. It's immensely valuable and it'll take you through every single major philosopher in every single major field throughout history. And then I would say the ancient Greeks as well. So Plato, the early Platonic texts, primarily because he will introduce you to what a philosopher should be doing, which is, seeking truth, rather than the consideration of like political gain or something like that. So yeah, I hope that answers your question, Doctor Sardonicus. I hope I'm saying that right. Um, yeah, one second, I'm just gonna. I'm glad I got it right. I'm glad I got it right. Oh, yeah. So, yeah, I don't know how I feel about that guy's book. I'll have to really just. I think I should probably turn that music down, should I? Just a tad. Um, I'm gonna have to check it out. And then I'll offer him to have a debate. Really, I think that'll be some interesting stuff. Did I find myself agreeing with anything the ANCAP guy said? Only about the problems of today's system in relation to the way that the government supports and props up unjust capitalist organizations, even by the way that capitalism works. Like, basically, I think we'd both disagree with the concept of cronyism. That's about it. Do I know Rem? Yeah, I know Rem. I speak to Rem every now and again. He's a nice guy. What do you think of people? What do you think of people that think vegans are beta or unmanly? I think those people are either ideologically indoctrinated or using it to excuse themselves of an existential of their own ethical obligation through existentialist means. I would do it, but it's so emasculating now. Um, you know, um, it's just the propagation of a social stigma in relation to what they want to do. Anything that they don't want to do is wrong, whilst whatever is right is not necessarily justified because it's not in harmonization with their preference. He's a vegan, is he? Well, that's cool. I'm glad to hear that he's a vegan. He's doing something right. Definitely willing to debate him though. He's got far too much faith in capitalism. It was borderline naive. It was like, oh, so businessmen on serial killers. That doesn't do good for business. It depends on what business you're in. How much influence does Hillary Putnam have on you? Who's Hillary Putnam? The name rings a bell. Yeah, so I've heard the name. I think I've discussed something about his philosophy with someone. But very little. I don't know anything really about him. I'm almost exclusively a continental. In terms of reading Hegel, do you have specific recommendations for reading secondary reading? Yeah, I would say David Rowe's A Reader's Guide to the Philosophy of Right is essential. I would say that Singer's introduction's really good. Oh wait, no, you're talking about secondary reading, not necessarily like beginner stuff. Um, oh, I don't know actually. I'd probably recommend The Philosophy of Right. It's called. It's a collection of essays. One second. So James Heller, thank you very much for your donation, James. I really appreciate it. Do you think that we should have cybernetic approach to Western epistemology as described by Gregory Bateson in his Conscious Purpose versus Nature essay? Okay, I've never read the essay, James, so I can't really comment on that. Cybernetic approach to Western epistemology. I'm not sure what that even entails. If I'm honest, I'd have to read the essay. But thank you for the donation. I really appreciate it. But I would recommend, in relation to the specific reading, there's a collection of essays under the title of Hegel's Philosophy of Right, and one of the authors is Dean Moyer, and I can't remember who the overall editor was. Was it Tom Brooks? It might be Tom Brooks. Yeah, Tom Brooks. I'd recommend that. How would I go about convincing a psychopath to go vegan? I would do it by appealing to the expression of their desires, and I'd try and show that egoism can only be adequately expressed in a form of altruism, in a form of collective ethics. Yeah, I probably wouldn't be able to. That's not to say that I wouldn't try, but if they're rational, like if it's a rational psychopath, then I think I could. I would say that ethics applies just as much to the rationally self-interested as the rationally selfless. You don't need empathy to do the right thing. What's the real value of tradition? To house forms of rationality and reasons that have been tried and tested by numerous generations. He seems happy. Bless you, Charlie. I don't really think that ethical wool is... I really don't think that ethical wool is possible, no. For numerous reasons. I think mostly the breeding of the animals. I mean, if you're saying like it's from a sanctuary, so like if there was in a sanctuary, they shaved the sheep, and like every now and again, like there was they had enough wool like to make a product. Yeah, maybe. Just because if they're trying to help the animal, they were shearing them. Maybe, but then like obviously that's like there wouldn't be an industry available for that. Excuse me. In the trolley problem, what about a baby or an old person? Who would you choose and why? Honestly, it depends on you say like in the trolley problem about a baby and an old person. That's like, I'm not sure which trolley problem. Could you? There we go. Thank you. I'm conflicted on getting tattoos. What are the reasons for getting tatted? Honestly, it was like I like art work really. So I like Batman, and I like the artwork in Batman. So I decided to get it permanently on my skin. That's all. That I like alternative stuff, and I like alternative girls, and alternative girls like tattoos. Well, that you do. Don't look at me like that. You're like one of the first things you pointed out when we first met was, "Oh, I really like your tattoos. Oh, that's really nice. Oh, so don't you go and tell me it worked. Okay, it's a tried and proven strategy. Oh, anyway. So yeah, I would say that would be certainly primary motivation was self-expression in terms of like getting what I like on my skin, and attracting women who are attracted to tattoos, really, and also tattooed women. Yeah. Well, that was you. Yeah. Well, you're not. A friend of mine thinks that charismatic people can easily take over anarchistic societies and become dictators because they are too democratic and therefore easily influenced. What are your thoughts? Well, that could happen with non-charismatic people, like not with a non-anarch. It's not a criticism of anarchy; it's a criticism of like manipulation. At least in anarchy, there is like a way to power check. In relation to if the legislators are held to legislation, like they could only hold so much power, and that power is in relation to so many people, and so they could be charismatic, and it could be gain authority, but that authority has to be justified, and that's why I would say like, look, we need to establish an ethical foundation of the state in the first place. Like it's in relation to just the foundations of what is acceptable behavior, and that's why I would say that there needs to be like a codified law, a legal structure. That is separate and independent from any given agent. Fairly quiet in here. Up having a conversation about potential ethical obligation for self-sufficiency, self-sustainability. Well, I'm actually going to go off in the next 10 minutes tomorrow, if I'm honest. So we could tomorrow if you want. If you want to choose, if you're game for that, if you, sorry, I just don't want to like obviously half-ass the conversation. I'm not really just awake enough for it. You have to choose either the direction that kills the old person or the direction that kills the baby. I get that point. Yeah. It's more like, are the independent features, is it just old person or baby? Who do I value more, old person or baby? I'd probably choose the baby. I'd probably help the baby. If it's just in a vacuum, like old person versus baby, primarily because the narrative of the baby's life has only just begun, so death at a younger age is a greater harm to that individual. They've had less experiences. It depends. I mean, like hell, like what's society look outside? Will I be doing the baby a favor? Like, you know, are they living in anarchical capitalism? I like that. I like alternative girls, and alternative girls like tattoos. Yeah, very strategic. Absolutely, that is exactly that's the whole crack. Like, come on, man. That's it's just the way it works. Can you expand on the idea that individual cannot reject the existence of value in other people without rejecting value itself? Yeah, so I would say that the understanding of value in general is based in a universal, which has to be mind independent and objective. And if it wasn't, then it would be subject to the caprice of the individual. And not only that, it would be instantiated upon a private language game, and a private language game is impossible to facilitate and impossible to function. And so what has to be discussed is common. And if value was private and held by a single individual, it could not be common and understood by multiple agents, and therefore could not be metaphysically divested from the rest of experience in a way that wouldn't fail to what's called the the Geach-Frege embedding problem. So the individual who even tries to establish that understanding of the concept as being an objective standard from which to make their own judgments would not be able to know whether they were interpreting the concept correctly in every usage. So every time they use the word value or any other ethical term, there would be no foundation from which them for which they could appeal. So this is why, like, obviously this is Geach and Frege, and it's a very Wittgensteinian position in relation to how language works. So yeah, I hope that explains the question. Any strong views on Camus? Don't know if I'm asking too many questions. Nah, man, it's cool. I think Camus is pretty cool. I don't agree with absurdism. I think that fundamentally it's a overappreciation of skepticism which led him there in the first place. But I don't. So I'm not incredibly convinced by any of his work, really, because I think he's dealing with a philosophical problem that we can kind of circumvent. But his solution itself, I don't think works either, in terms of like the possibility of knowledge. So yeah, but I like his work. Like, I like it. I just don't think it's right. James, thank you for your donation. What are your thoughts on the standard point of epistemology and its effect on on the standpoint of epistemology and its effect on political action? I think epistemology is essential for any action. I think that the ability to understand what you, how you should and should not act in the world is based upon the capacity for knowledge which exists between individuals. And so I think that having a strong epistemological foundation for any action in the world, any judgment you are going to make, is necessary if you are trying to act in a way which actually reflects true justified belief. And if not, then your actions are, I don't want to say valueless, because they're not, but you could not know the value of your actions, the efficiency of your actions, or like the weight of your actions. And so your actions are unguided, and your judgment is open to the principle of explosion. So yeah. Caltech neuroscience professor has a theory of mind called integrated information theory. I would love to chat about this and get your thoughts. Absolutely, man. You're one of many people that are asking to chat. You're gonna have to, like, I'm gonna just send us an email. Just send us an email at this point. It's in the about section. I'm gonna need that, like, because I've got like quite a few people asking for a chat now. Tomato, obviously, you're on like the server and stuff. You could also join the Discord. If you join the Discord, you can message us on there. Just add us on there. I've got to talk to. There's a Buddhist monk wanting to talk to us. There's who else? There's a guy called Evan Soy who wants to talk to us. There's quite a few people who I want to talk. So yeah, it depends on, obviously I'll have to kind of like schedule everyone in. Cloud of Time. What are your thoughts on the? Oh no, I just answered that one. How responsible are people on their own for their own actions? Yeah, I would say that they are responsible for their actions. That they are the only person responsible for their actions, unless they are being coerced in some way. Oh yeah, I think I've seen you in the Discord. What do you think of who's Grankenlems? What? Someone's got a video about us. What? No, you're messing with us now. You're messing with us. What's it called? Granklen. What's that? Am I spelling that right? How do I even spell that? I'm just gonna copy that from chat. Oh yeah. Oh, I remember that one. The one where he animates us. Yeah, it made us laugh. I think that he's a very, very I think that he basically tries to make us out as if I'm some sort of ridiculous. I'm holding some sort of ridiculous position when I said in the superhuman dance debate that his argument would need to establish some sort of justified risk taking in relation to yourself and others, and what would be justified or not. And you said that, like, look, no risk is justified. Like, you have to essentially wipe out all life because the chances of suffering, like eternal suffering, is so much greater than the chance, like, so much worse than the value of eternal pleasure. And I was like, well, what if the chances are like 1 in 100 trillion or something, right? Like, is the justification, is it justified to press the button or not? And so we need like a theory of value of like what is what is justified to gamble with, and so on. And so you need to, that's why I said he's justifying a theory of what's called Maximin reasoning, right? And we actually talked about these examples almost identically in philosophy at university. And I was just saying, like, I'm not saying that he's even wrong for saying that you'd be wrong for pressing the button to like risk like eternal suffering for eternal pleasure, even if the benefit outweighed, like, was much more likely than the the consequences, the negative consequences. But I was trying to establish that he was asserting his claim in a form of rationality, which was self-justifying his position. He was saying you would never be justified in taking this risk, and I was saying, well, why not? And he was saying, like, well, you just would not be worth, not justified in taking this risk. And I think it misses that point, which is kind of what I would say. But like, weird that someone made that video though. It was such a strange video. Can you explain why we should have democracy in politics or in the workplace? Okay, so the democracy gives the greatest expression of the individual's position of validation and falsification in relation to any given judgment, especially a value judgment, which means that they have direct involvement in relation to the ethical discourse of that institution and that society. If they aren't given involvement, then then an individual acts on their behalf without considering their interests, without considering their rationality, and so it presupposes the rationality of one individual is greater than another without any justification. And so I would say that it's an epistemological benefit. Even if we had a purely good agent, they wouldn't be able to do the right thing without the engagement of other individuals who can inform them of their preferences and their position on their judgments. And so, yeah, I would say that's why that we need democratization, so that we don't have the caprice of subjective agents overrunning the rationality of collective judgment. But can there be a form of non-conceptual private subjective value, e.g. a non-rational animal having a first-person sense of value towards their own experience? Can there be I don't think that it's... I think that the value towards their own experience is inherent. Like, they will value their own experiences, but understanding the value of their experiences is something that requires second-order desires and second-order principles. So they have to evaluate and hover, in the words of Levinas, hover over their own experiences. So they have a distance away from their experiences in order to understand them. And that's only possible in relation to having an epistemic system, which allows for evaluation and knowledge of the self, self-awareness. So, for example, people who are self-aware may judge that it would be better to die in a given situation, whilst an animal would not. So, like, for example, if you know that you are like going to be tortured for 25 years, or you could die, some people will choose death and they'll say that is justified. Or euthanasia in a more real life case, some conditions are so debilitating, some people would say that it was not worth living with that condition. And so, like, that's only possible if you negate your first order desires. So your first order desires show that the subjectivity is attempting to express itself in relation to the world against an objective standard, which is your interests, but the understanding of those interests is only possible in relation to ethics. And so any sort of private subjective evaluation of the world is only going to be instantiating the intrinsic drives of the agent, and in which, in which case, are they even the agent's drives? Are they well, they are the agent's drives, but are they even the agent's choices anymore? Is the agent even able to differentiate what and make the choice themselves? And in which case, I'd say no. I'd say that there lacks freedom, in which the subjectivity of the individual is not being expressed objectively. And I would say that's essentially what Hegel says. But thank you for your question. So, wait, you disagree with the claim that life is meaningless, right? Ethics is meaning, right? Yeah, I do disagree with that. Like, it depends what you mean by life is meaningless. I don't know what you mean, Brainstorm. Sounds good. I'm in Discord. We'll do that. Thanks, VP. Sweet, man. Are there others on YouTube covering philosophy and politics whose work you appreciate? Say this time and time again, is Philosophy Overdose. Really think they're great. Really appreciate their work. So yeah, check out Philosophy Overdose especially. Marty from Philosophy Chat's really cool. Check him out. He's really well read. Who else? Like, yeah, I've seen like 1 or 2 cook philosophy videos now. They seem pretty good. But yeah, definitely Philosophy Overdose. Are there many other? Why is private language impossible? Essentially because it implies that an individual could verify or falsify. It implies that there could exist a standard which was interpretable as being separate to your own interpretation. Language implies a standard in which the interpretation of a word could be separate from your interpretation at that given time. So, for example, if I say the word table and point at an object, it is or is not a table. And if I say in the next moment table and I point at a different object, then there is a standard which says it is or is not a table. And if I go back to the first object and I say chair, and I've said table and chair, based on my own structure within my language, I'm going to need some sort of interpretation which is separate from mine, which would allow me to understand whether I've used the word right. Which means, like, essentially private language is impossible because it relies upon the individual interpreting their own usage of the word as being justified or not. You could say you could write this down, but how are you going to write it down? The entire language is in and of itself separate, embedded in the caprice, in the judgment of the agent. And so the judgment of the agent at any given time determines the meaning of the words, which means the meaning of the words both can and cannot be whatever you think it is. It could be that and it's direct negation, and there's no way to test that. So it's meaningless. It doesn't function as a language. That's a very basic kind of understanding of Wittgenstein's private language argument, but you can find that in the Philosophical Investigations. So yeah. This may be a weird question, but I'm going to go for it anyways. What makes one person's belief more justified than another? Not a weird question at all. It's not about a person's beliefs being more justified than another. It's the concept of justification is based on evidence, whether it's rational or empirical. And I would say that the more evidenced position, the more evidenced argument is the one that is more justified. And that is based off relation to rational argumentation, and peer validation and or falsification. So has it been tested rationally or empirically by others, and does it follow a valid and sound format? Like, is it logical? So yeah. What do I think of error theory? I think error theory is a metaphysical response to really something like a misunderstanding of morality in the first place. That's what I would say about error theory. Okay, so guys, I'm gonna go off in the next like couple of minutes. So I'm gonna answer the next 3 questions. They can either be through the donation or in the chat. Obviously, I'll answer donations before I answer chat. So yeah, and obviously, if anyone wants to donate to support the channel, I'm currently saving for a new camera because this one is breaking and is actually flickering on stream and stuff like that. So if you want to help support that goal, it'd be much appreciated as well. Yeah. But the next 3 questions, guys. I am a colour. Actually, yes. I am the colour purple. In your video reviewing the woman who stopped being vegan, you pointed out that she was vegan because of her guilt and that this is missing the point of being vegan. If someone cannot convince themselves that animals are worthy of consideration, should they continue to eat meat if the only reason they are being vegan is due to their guilt? It's not whether they should or should not eat meat in relation to their emotional states, because if they're based on their emotional states, then what they do isn't based on reason anyway. So don't talk about oughts and shoulds because they are rational argumentation if they're subject to their emotional caprice. I'll just say that everyone shouldn't eat meat and it is wrong to. There is no ought they eat meat if they are incapable of grasping the concept of oughts. So yeah. I hope that answers the question, Noppo. Okay. What's that? Does life doesn't have a PP? Life doesn't have a purpose. That's what I'm talking about. Oh, sorry, it's kind of cute. Thanks for answering the chat's questions. How much left to buy some eyebrows? Funnily enough, like it is just strange. I do actually need to buy some eyebrows. This is the funny thing. I've been trying to get my hands on some eyebrows for so long. Why don't I have eyebrows? I've always wondered this. Why don't I have eyebrows? That's because they're blonde. Yeah. Goddamn blonde brows, making us look eyebrowless. Just answer brainstorm because you asked before. PP, doesn't life have a purpose? That's what I'm talking about. And I'm saying ethics or it's the result of function of them, I guess. Well, life is like life has purpose, but like, well, it's not just life. It's I'd say functional concepts are embedded within consciousness and conscious evaluation. At least the value of functional concepts is embedded within the evaluation of in the value of an evaluator. I've already said that I'm gonna go, but those are 2 good questions. So drop them in either the in the comment section, or just turn up for next video and I'll answer them. So yeah, nice questions though. So I'm gonna go, everyone. So thank you all for watching. If you like this video, please give it a thumbs up. Please consider subscribing, and as always,